Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel once before, but that was a way back in June of 2018. The last beer I tried from these guys was an IPA and I was really impressed with it, and it seems that over the last couple of years they've been consistently building their reputation. So I'm very curious to see how this beer turns out, because we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum for this one. So for this review we are going to head down to Nottingham, and we're having a look at another beer from Raptor Brewing Company. So this one is called the Bigfoot Expert. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this one is being described as a triple chocolate Imperial Stout. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's another very good beer. I'm sure it was Adam from Mersey Beers that was telling me he'd had this one before and that it was really good actually. So he's never sent me wrong when it comes to beer before, so I'm sure if he's saying it's good, it probably will be. But definitely nice to return to these guys after quite some time. The last beer that I had from these guys, as I said, back in about June of 2018, according to the file in my notes file that I have, that was called Retrace the Steps, and it was a 6.7% New England hazy style IPA, and I do remember that one being pretty good actually. I bought that beer at the Hop Knocker in Durham, which was is a great little beer shop, and I recommend that you check out that one as well. This particular beer incidentally was bought at the House of Trembling Madness, who are from York, a great beer shop if you can get there physically. I was there in 2017 and it only seems to have gotten better over the years from what I've heard, but they've also got a great web shop on there as well, which the English beer tubers tell me is one of the best value ones that you're going to find. As I've said in many reviews, the English beer scene really is thriving at the moment, so if you want to buy some English beers, House of Trembling Madness is a very good place to start. Great selection there, and I got great service from them as well. So yeah, check out those guys. I'll try to remember to put the link to their web shop in the video description for you below. But yeah, like I said, really nice to return to Raptor again after quite some time, nearly 2.5 years, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Always nice to try beers from different ends of the spectrum when it comes to a brewery as well. So my first dark beer from these guys. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one in a 10% triple chocolate Imperial Stout. This should be pretty good. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Raptor Brewing Company before, and hopefully I can add some more to that list in the fairly near future. I'll need to see what I can get the next time I get back to Scotland. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment, because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland of Scotland, and these English beers are very accessible here. But I'm also getting a steady stream of English beers over in Sweden as well through Systembolaget, which is more than welcome. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Raptor Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Raptor are originally from Derby, but they're now based in Nottingham, and the company started out as the home brewing experiments of Adam Henderson, and he participated in and won Brewdog's local home brewing competition back in 2015, and this was what really inspired him to kind of go commercial and start up his own company. But a year later he joined forces with Tom Ainsley and Josh Meller, both of whom are former postmen, and they got started on getting this company together. But the name Raptor is apparently a take on Adam's hypothetical glam rock band that he would have had, and they had originally gone with Neon Tiger, but apparently this was too close to a well-known beer brand, and so they had to change it to Neon Raptor, which I think is a pretty cool name actually. A little bit of dinosaur in there, I guess we could say. But yeah, initially these guys started off as a gypsy brewery, and they were brewing small batches of 300 litres in early 2016, and then in 2017 they started producing using a 1,000 litre brew kit in Burton upon Trent. They started producing in the Snayton Market in Nottingham in 2018, and that is where they are still based today. They've been expanding the infrastructure of the brewery over the last few years. In June of 2018, they opened up their tap room, and they are apparently looking to go through quite a big expansion phase at the moment. But apparently that, obviously that had to go on hold because of the whole kind of COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, a number of breweries are having that problem, of course. So yeah, just the story with small businesses at the moment. Fingers crossed they can pull through that and come out stronger next year, or this year I should say now, in 2021. But yeah, as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 120 different kinds of beer. When I had a little quick flick through the Untappd list, there seemed to be quite a variety of different styles in there. A lot of New England hazy IPAs, quite a few Imperial stouts, and there was a few sours and things like that in there, if I remember rightly as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Neon Raptor Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is your little story about Neon Raptor then. To tell you a little bit about the beer just before we open it up, this one, as I mentioned to you earlier, is a 10% Imperial Stout. It's brewed with 13 different malt varieties apparently, and also 3 varieties of chocolate, which is sourced from their neighbour Louisa's Vegan Chocolates. So yeah, pretty damn cool. I'll just like to have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. It is really nicely presented, this one. I'm not sure exactly when this beer was produced, if it is a fairly recent one to January of 2021. Does it say on the can? It just says best before 27/11/21, but it says, oh no, it says canned on the 27th of the 11th 20. That's a bit of a very short a short life actually. They're only recommending that this stays in the can for 1 year, which is quite unusual. A big Imperial Stout like this, you probably could age that for quite a bit longer, but maybe the cans aren't quite as secure from oxidation and things like that over the long term. I'm not quite sure about that. Maybe that is the reason. Let me know if you guys know a little bit about that in the comments section below. That's something that I've never actually thought about. But yeah, lovely black top on the can there. Artwork is really, it kind of keeps within the whole vibe of the beer. Their symbol is normally kind of red and pink and blue, bright blue, neon actually. So the silver kind of thing, the silver and black, I think works quite well as well. A little bit chic, maybe, if you could say. But yeah, it says on the back side here, decadent, appetizing, thick. Bigfoot Expert is a fully vegan triple chocolate Imperial Stout. We combine cacao shells, liquid chocolate and chocolate essence with a rich and varied malt bill. The cocoa shells are sourced from our neighbour Louisa Vegan Chocolates. This beer is perfect for wilderness roaming. So yeah, this I think should be pretty damn good actually. So yeah, without further ado, let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting. 440ml can. I actually can't remember what I paid for this one, but I would suspect it would be somewhere in the region of about £8 sterling. So that would be, in Swedish kroner, 8 times 12 is going to be about 95 Swedish kroner for those of you watching over there. It'll be about maybe €9, €9.25, something like that, and maybe about $10 American, I guess, maybe nearer 11, come to think of it. But yeah, really nicely presented beer, this one. 10% Imperial Stout. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I think this is the first of the stout beers that I'm reviewing from my English order that I got, so quite exciting in that sense as well. So let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. Look at this one, look at the pour on this. That's just absolutely ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. Look at that. We can fit all of it into the glass then, the head isn't going to go too crazy. I will be sharing this beer with my dad, of course. He quite likes sampling all of these things, and for me it's actually nice to be able to just drink about half of the beer. I love drinking, I love tasting all the different beers, but sometimes the 440ml cans are just a wee bit much for me. For me it's all about the kind of tasting, the sort of nerdy, foodie side of things when it comes to these beers. But yeah, I've had, it's nice to share them with my dad actually, he really enjoys it too. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, and as you would expect when it's a big Imperial Stout, it poured, really, really thick, and I'm sure we'll get a crazy mouthfeel out of this one. But just look at this. This is a lovely, dark, ebony kind of rosewood colour, which is what you would expect from the style. You can see that there was a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say quite dark tan head on this one. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there. The head incidentally has faded to be a very, very thin foamy layer. Now, like I said, maybe about a quarter finger of a frothy, fairly, maybe medium to dark tan kind of head actually, but there is a nice little bit of a foamy ring just around the edge of the glass there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. It looks very, very good. But yeah, this one I think is going to be very, very impressive. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer when we shine the light through it. There is a wee tiny hint of a kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge around the surface up there. But yeah, this is a lovely kind of big, dark, ebony rosewood colour. So yeah, certainly looks pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yeah, I think we should have a little look at the aroma of this one then. Nothing surprising about the appearance when you consider what style it is. Yeah. Oh, that's ridiculous. Already. Just an absolute beast. Yeah, when they say a triple chocolate Imperial Stout, they weren't kidding. Let's just say that. Yeah. Straight away with this one. There's a whole depth to the chocolate in here. So, in the backbone you can smell like that sort of powdery, almost Nesquik powder type thing coming out of this one, that, you know, hot chocolate type powder thing. That is almost like the backbone. On top of that you've got the kind of richer, dark, higher cocoa quality chocolate out of this one, you know, sort of 60-70% cocoa, and then right on the front of the nose you've got the big sort of oily chocolate flavour essence that's a little bit like some of these Omnipollo beers that we've reviewed many of from back over in Sweden throughout the years. So yeah, this beer does have, it's got a wee bit of a kind of natural purist kind of vibe to it, but at the same time it's got a little bit of that kind of flavour essency, Omnipollo type thing to it. I do wonder if you could consider this one a pastry stout, actually. We'll need to talk about that a little bit in this review. Yeah, this one smells very, very nice. Yeah, lovely, lovely smelling beer, that, I have to say. Where do we go? Where do we start with that otherwise? Yeah, the big oily kind of flavour essency chocolate in there. There's definitely a little bit of vanilla coming out of this one. It's got a really milky chocolatey note to it in the beginning, but you've got a good whole balance of things in there. Like I say, that powdery, you know, chocolate milky type chocolate in there. Then you've got the kind of 60-70% cocoa darker chocolate in there, maybe even a little bit more, 80% cocoa. You've got a nice kind of oily, as I say, you've got a really nice kind of oily flavour essency chocolate in there. That's the more kind of milky thing that's coming out of this one. You do have a little bit of that almost kind of chocolate brownie cakiness to it, almost muffin type thing in there, but yeah, some vanilla for sure. That, you know, vanilla giving you the impression of a sort of more milky chocolate in this beer. This is when they say it's, as I say, when they say it's a triple chocolate Imperial Stout, they're no kidding, they're no joking. Yeah. But yeah, if we'll try and explore a wee bit underneath that. So beyond the kind of big fruity thing that you get, the sort of the big chocolatey thing you get out of this beer, you do get a little element of fruitiness out of this one. There is a bit of a kind of rich kind of sort of blackberry note to this one. You can smell a wee bit of a kind of slightly juicier figgy quality to it too. Those kind of red fruity esters that you can sometimes get from really high cocoa chocolate in there. It's almost got there is almost a wee tiny little hint of a very, very smooth coffee in this one, which is quite interesting. It's also almost just got a little bit of that very smooth roasted coffee in there, which I very, very much enjoy as well. But yeah, you can smell there is a little bit of breadiness to this beer, almost like a kind of very, very smooth brown bread sort of thing. Maybe a little touch of a well-fired bread crust. There is a wee touch of black malt coming out of this beer as well. A few kind of woody and nutty undertones in there also. It does have a little bit of complexity if you look for it, but as I say, the chocolate is the real kind of dominating presence in this beer, which, when they describe the style, is not surprising at all. When they describe the beer, I should say. But yeah, the aroma out of this one is just absolutely crazy. On the hoppy side of things, you get a little bit of earthiness to it. There is a wee bit of grassiness as well, which is very, very nice. But yeah, it smells like it's an American hop, this one. A little bit of light grassiness, a wee bit of a herbal quality, maybe a tiny bit of floral character, but really not a lot. Yeah, a little bit of grassiness, a little bit herbal, but then there is a good wee touch of earthiness as well, actually. I'd be curious to know what hop it is they've used in this one. Would it be, you know, a little bit of English like Fugels or Kent Goldings or something, or would they go for something American like, you know, Summit or something that's quite popular in these big Imperial stouts. But yeah, it's got a lovely depth to the aroma, this one actually. There's a wee bit of the thing, as I say, that is most dominant, it's got a wee bit of a kind of chocolate brownie sort of thing to it, and it's got all those different chocolatey complexities to it, a wee bit of red fruit, and then a wee bit of hoppy character as well, and a few woody, nutty type undertones. But it's a beautiful, beautiful smelling beer, this one. I think we're only really going to, I think the smell and the aroma with this one is only going to scratch the surface of the complexity of this beer, but take a bit of time to enjoy it anyway. But we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the Bigfoot Expert, a 10% Imperial Stout, a triple chocolate Imperial Stout, according to Neon Raptor from the Neon Raptor Brewery in Nottingham, down in England. This one I think is going to be a bit of a beast. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's very, very nice. The thing that strikes my mind about this beer already is that for a beer that really smells like it's going to be one of these big pastry stouts, I really like the fact that it maintains that sort of more purist backbone, if you like. I've nothing against the kind of pastry stouts, if you like, and you know, using the flavour essence and stuff. It's just a you know, it is just a different style of brewing, if you like. But this beer really strikes me as a more, you know, old school purist brewed Imperial Stout. It's maybe, you know, 10-20% sort of flavour essence, if you like, something like that. But the rest of this beer is kind of pure all grain brewing. So it's a nice little change actually, to have a big Imperial Stout like this, because a lot of the stouts you'll find these days are the big kind of pastry things, and that was what I was expecting with this one. But it is a nice surprise actually. It's got a little bit of the flavour essence side to it, but it mainly comes across as a kind of pure all grain stout, although as I say that, you've got a load of adjuncts, different chocolates and things in it. But yeah, the backbone of this beer is, yeah, it does come across as all grain. But yeah, thumbs up to Neon Raptor for this. That's an absolutely solid beer actually, and it is a nice change of pace for the Imperial Stouts. Actually, it's got the best of both worlds, to be honest with you. So yeah, definitely one that will give you a little bit of food for thought, absolutely. But yeah, beautiful beer, this one. Very, very big and silky, very, very thick, but you'd expect that at 10% ABV. You know, beers like this have a huge, you know, they've got a huge caramelization factor to them. You know, the way that you get these very, very dark colours out of the beer, these black ebony kind of rosewood colours, is that you have a very, very long boil. So this beer will probably have undergone, you know, a 6, you know, somewhere in the region of like a 6-hour boil, something like this. It makes the sugars caramelise more. It gives you the big dark colour, although the colour is also dependent on the types of malts that you actually put in the beer in the first place to a degree. But yeah, this is just, it's lovely, it's beautifully done. So straight away with this beer, you do get a sort of bready backbone to it. You can feel that straight away. You can feel it's like a sort of toasty, well-fired, bread crusty sort of thing. I wouldn't be overly surprised if this beer has a little bit of, you know, carafa in it. There is just something quite familiar about this. It's got a bit of that really well-fired, bread crusty sort of thing that you get from the carafa malts from the Weiermann maltery in Bamberg and Franconia over in Germany. They're very, very distinctive, and I just get a little bit of that out of this one. But yeah, you've got I think you've got oats in this one and things, and wheat and stuff just sitting on top of it. This beer apparently doesn't have the oats. It must be the chocolate. Doesn't have oats or wheat in it, come to think of it. That's very interesting. So yeah, it must just be the chocolate and other things that are smoothing this beer out. But it's lovely and silky actually. Yeah, craziness. So yeah, on top of that kind of what I suspect is a Weiermann carafa malt there, that's the form of the backbone of the beer. You can feel that in the back third of your palate, you start to get a more kind of roasty, toasty, black malty thing there. So the intensity of that well-fired bread crust is actually quite smooth and just very slightly dry in the middle of the palate. But then as you go into that back third of your tongue, it just intensifies a little bit and just gets a wee bit more kind of almost bitey, if you can say, just a little bit drier. But on top of that, you've got a very nice just smoothness to the beer. It's got a lovely big kind of silkiness there. It almost comes across in the same manner that you would expect oats to, but there's no oats and there's no wheat in this beer, apparently. So I'm really curious as to how they've got that. The ingredients list it has here is water, barley, liquid cacao, cacao shells, yeast, hops and chocolate essence. So yeah, I'm wondering what they've used to kind of thicken out this beer, or is it just down to the kind of sheer boil? This one I would suspect might also be, it could also be like a double or maybe even a triple mash stout this, and that usually thickens up the beers like that. But yeah, beautiful stuff, I have to say. So this beer, it really has a big silkiness, particularly, and a big thickness on that back third of your tongue. It does feel almost similar to what you get from like a wheat stout, and you can feel the smoothness of the beer as you just kind of move forward to that. But as you reach that, as you reach that kind of border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there is a wee bit of an almost like chocolate brownie dryness to this one. It's like the well-fired edge of the brownie that you get on the side of the baking tray. It's kind of like that. You get that wee bit of dryness in there. But yeah, definitely at the very back of the tongue, a little bit of a roasty, well-fired bread crusty sort of thing to it. As you move further forward, very, very thick. But yeah, a nice kind of smooth, slightly smoother, brown bready type quality underpinning the beer there. But yeah, in the middle of your palate, as I say, you get a bit of a smoother kind of roasty toasty black malty quality in this one. You definitely get a bit of a smoother kind of brown, almost rye bread type quality in there. And as you go to the front corners of the palate and then just move diagonally back, there are one or two little woody elements in there. If you go to the centre of your palate and move forward, you will just pick out one or two little kind of nutty things out of the beer as well. For me, this beer, it does have a little bit of a really toasty brown sugary element, which just kind of sits on top of the bread there. But it is quite a dry and toasted caramel rather than being big and oily, as you can sometimes get there. So that's another interesting point to make about this beer. The brown sugars in this beer are quite dry and quite toasted, and a lot of the kind of silkiness that you're getting out of this beer is most likely coming from the chocolate and other stuff, the kind of chocolate adjuncts that have been put in the beer. So yeah, that's really interesting about this one for sure. But yeah, the beer actually really does give an impression of an almost lactosey type quality. I mean, on that front half, on top of those bready notes and things that I've just described for you, and the woody things and stuff, on that front half of that middle third of your palate, it has a little section where it almost feels like, sort of vanilla-y. You've got that nice kind of just vanilla kind of smoothness, that oaty vanilla type thing coming out of the beer, which is really, really interesting. But you'll find that the back half of that middle third of your palate just dries out a little bit. It leans towards the kind of bread crust. It leans a little bit towards that toasty side of the brown sugars, and you get a few of the woody elements coming out of it. It's maybe even a little bit grainy, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, it's really interesting that. And then just sitting on top of all of that, you start to get that more powdery, Nesquik powder, hot chocolate powder type thing going on, sitting on top of that. That just dries the beer out as you go further into the aftertaste. That's a really interesting thing to say about this beer for sure. But yeah, when you take the beer in initially, it's lovely and big and silky, and you really get a sweetness lingering over the top of that, of all those flavours that I've just described there. And it's a mix of everything, it's that big liquid cocoa that's in there. You can really feel that sitting in the beer, and it lingers there as well. You can feel the slightly more oily and candied type chocolate sitting on top of that as well. Like, it's almost, the liquid chocolate just sits on top of the kind of drier thing that's in there, like I said, and then you start to get the liquid chocolate on top, and then the more chocolate essence just sitting on top of that, and you get the big candied sweetness there in the very, very centre of your palate. But as you go further into the aftertaste, you get more vanilla, you get more kind of, it's almost like an oatiness in there. I mean, if I was tasting this stout blind, I would think that there was oats in this, and there was a bit of wheat in there potentially. I would never guess, but I suppose this is something that's new to me, and this is why I love doing these reviews. You're always learning about stuff. I don't think I've ever had a beer that's had liquid cocoa or cacao added into the brew, so this is definitely a new one for me. The depth of chocolate in this though is just crazy. Yeah, dry powdered chocolate, you know, a slightly smoother but still high cocoa liquid chocolate, and then the really sweet, more milky chocolatey type essence to the beer, and a wee bit of the vanilla and stuff like that too. And then, as I say, if you go to the very centre of your palate and move forward, you get the more kind of nutty notes. There's a few woody undertones in there. This is just a kind of very, very interesting beer for me. I really like how this whole thing pieces together actually. So yeah, on the malty side of things, this beer gets a massive, massive thumbs up from me. But yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, it's got a nice degree of kind of earthiness in there. The earthiness does develop a bit of dryness as you go further into the aftertaste, and that suits the transition of flavour that the beer makes. As you move further forward, it's a little bit more slightly herbal, but then as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, there's a distinct little bit of floral aromaticity to the beer, and then around the front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and grassy. There's almost a teeny little bit of zestiness out of this one, but if I'm drinking this beer, in fairness, when it's a little more than a month in the can, you're still going to get a wee bit of hoppiness out of this beer. As I said earlier, they recommend that this beer should only stay in the can. You should only keep this for about a year, but I think, you know, you probably could age it a little bit longer than that, as long as the can is secure and blah blah blah. But the hops probably will drop out of this one as you kind of go further through the year. Of course, the hops drop away further. So I'm drinking this one quite fresh. You guys might get a little bit less floral character and a little bit less grassiness out of this one, but I think it adds a nice wee contrast to the beer for sure. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. As I always say, on that front third of your palate you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and if you go to that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, then it definitely has again that kind of well fired, it's got a bit of cakiness to it, but it's also got that well fired kind of browny edge to it, that real kind of dry sort of browny edge there. But yeah, you can feel a little bit of that kind of cakiness just creeping under that front third of your palate as well, where the big oily bubble comes out. But let's focus on the fruity esters. Let's do that. So yeah, when you go towards the back of that front third of your palate there is a wee bit of a slightly kind of cherryish note to this one. It's got a few of these kind of more dried, datey, pruny type things to it because of the cakiness there. They come out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste, but it does begin with a wee bit of a raisiny sharpness and a little bit more of a kind of oily, plummy character when you've got the liquid on your tongue, but then, as I say, you get that drier, datey, pruny sort of thing out of it. And then yeah, as you move further forward on this beer, you almost get just a wee bit of a like sort of sultana, you know, kind of sultana, dried peary type flavour out of it, which is quite interesting, and I really like that. But then as you move further forward towards the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, you get more of a kind of juicier, figgy quality out of the beer, and then on the front, the very kind of front edge of the palate, you get a little bit more of a, you know, a kind of a juicy blackcurrant there, and a more oily kind of blackberry, if that makes sense. You definitely get those more juicy and oily type fruity characters out of the beer, which I think works out really nicely. So yeah, awesome beer this one. I think overall it's just got a nice blend of sweetness, dryness, and kind of juicy fruity qualities to it as well. The hops I think add a little bit of add a nice impression to this beer as well. If we're talking about it stylistically, maybe it's sort of goes to the border. Maybe it's got a little bit of Russian Imperial stout quality to it from the dryness and stuff like that, but it's also got a hell of a lot of sweet stout kind of character to it as well. And this beer, it really does dry out the further you go into the aftertaste. More of the kind of well-fired bread crust from what I suspect is carafa in this one, and more of the kind of powdery dry chocolate actually. So the whole vibe of this beer I think is really quite quirky and very interesting. So yeah, and also just a ridiculously good beer in my mind, so it gets a massive thumbs up from me. It's one of the most complex stouts I think I've had in quite a wee while, so yeah, I've really enjoyed this one actually. I like how it blends what you might expect from a pastry stout these days with you know, with a more kind of old school like RIS, Russian Imperial Stout kind of vibe. This is really nicely done, so well done to Neon Raptor. I do hope I can try a few more beers from these guys, and also a few different styles as well, come to think of it. But yeah, when it comes to the mouthfeel then, let's do this and round off the review. Yeah, this beer I think it's kind of middle of the full body spectrum. It's definitely not the thickest of Imperial Stouts that I've had, and I think, you know, if it had oats and wheat in it as well, it would definitely be one of those. It's got a hell of a body to it when you consider it doesn't have those, which is quite impressive. But yeah, the middle point of the full body, the end of the spectrum for me. The beer overall is very, very silky and almost quite slick in its mouthfeel, and I would say it develops a bit of dryness. It really does develop a little bit of dryness there. The carbonation is very, very smooth, of course, but yeah, I do like how this goes together. A lot of cakey elements to the beer too, but in terms of the hoppy bitterness to this one, and just the IBUs overall, I wouldn't be surprised if this beer had like a fairly decent IBU in it, you know, 50 or 60 IBUs, and that's coming both from the malty side of things and also from the hoppy side of the beer. But remember, the hoppiness will drop away the further that you go into the beer, so maybe probably the IBU count of this would drop away a little bit the longer that you leave this beer, for sure. But the malty side of this beer, as I say, a little bit of dryness to it, smoothness as well, and you've also got some of those kind of slick but big and sweet elements, the vanilla, the chocolate and things. So yeah, nice little bit of hoppy bitterness, as I said. I think maybe about 50, 60 IBUs, something like this. Remember though, that's my weakest point of reviewing. My IBU counts can be quite off, to be honest with you. But yeah, lovely blend of fruits in there, a little bit of dried fruit, a little bit of a kind of more juicy, oily type thing as well. But just a beautiful beer, this one, and I think it really, you know, straddles the border between like an old school Russian Imperial Stout and a more kind of modern pastry stout, if that makes sense, and I really like that about it. So big thumbs up to the guys at Neon Raptor. From my point of reference, this is a very, very unique Imperial Stout actually, and it's cool to return to these guys after 2.5 years. Let's leave it there. I do hope I can try more beers from these guys in the future, as I said. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. The Bigfoot Expert triple chocolate Imperial Stout. I was ready to say IPA there. Triple chocolate Imperial Stout at 10% ABV from Neon Raptor in Nottingham, down in England. An awesome, awesome beer, this one, and I certainly look forward to more from these guys in the future. A great blend of a kind of old school Russian Imperial Stout and a more modern kind of pastry stout, if you like, and also a bit of that kind of flavour essence brewing stuff that you'll find from Omnipollo these days. So great, great stuff, and make sure you check out this brewery. I know they're doing some awesome, awesome beers. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Neon Raptor Brewing Company, and we will return to these guys again soon. The Bigfoot Expert, 10% triple chocolate Imperial Stout from Neon Raptor in Nottingham, down in England. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys on the next review. Cheers.